You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Glad you could make it today. Happy to have you on the show with me here, and looking forward to going through our Friday review. The Friday review each and every week. I love to bring you what's brand new, what's been happening in the practice over the past 7 days. Go over a book or product review that I'm enjoying right now, or it's one that I've read before and believe that it's pertinent for what's in the media right now and really what you should be knowing from a truth-based standpoint rather than just a lot of times what's fun to talk about out there in the media. Love going through some quick research. These are not in-depth, really dry, boring studies. This is quick takeaways. What's the research say? Is it accurate? Is it a large enough study? And what does it mean for you and your life? We'll be going through those today. And then in 2018, last year, we did our Super Nutrient of the Week. Every single Friday, I brought you one new vitamin or mineral or herb or whatever superfood it was that I believed would benefit you and your body. Check those shows out. But here in the beginning of 2019, we're going to be going through what do your lab results mean? Meaning when you go to your PCP, when you go to your MD, and they're running your lab work, what does it mean? I want you to know. I want you to be able to take back control of your health and understand the numbers probably, and this is no slight, better than they will. And again, I don't mean that from a condescending perspective. But the truth is that after MDs are through medical school, what they do is there's either a high or a low on your lab work. If it's anything in between, if it shows up within range, nothing is done. What I want you to do is not wait for there to be a high or a low, where then your medical doctor will prescribe you some type of pharmaceutical drug or an intervention. But what I would like to do is to optimize those levels so that you never get there in the first place. Okay. So we are going to get started. We're going to get started today with our what's new, what's been happening. And the truth is that we've had a lot happening over this past week. I'm on day 5 of my own New Year's detox every single year. For me, the past, I don't know how many years it's been now, about 7 years. Yeah, about 7 years of doing a functional medicine detox. I started out with a 21-day detox and have never looked back. I've done anywhere between 7 and 21 days, but seasonally for the past couple of years, I've been doing my 7-day detox every 12 weeks, just like they talk about in Ayurvedic medicine and every form of ancient-based medicine except conventional medicine. Every season, we essentially detox our bodies. This Tuesday, I hope you go back and listen to that show. On a little bit of a rant, I guess, this week. It was Beware of Deceptive Detox Programs. Check that out. That was episode 1068. So just go to stephencabral.com/1068 to find out why many of the programs out there right now have nothing at all to do with detoxification, but yet they're called detox-based programs. Be aware, the Cabral Concept is only and always about education. It's about really spreading the message of what's the truth out there with no bias. Every show, I give you so many different alternatives of how you can take action. So I always say, you don't have to be a part of our functional medicine detox that we do, called the Dr. Cabral Detox, but you can simply look for the ingredients that every good functional medicine detox should have. And then if yours passes the test, then you're all set. You're good to go. So check that out. And you can also check out my previous podcast on how to do a functional medicine detox. That's at stephencabral.com/podcasts. So I'm on day 5 now. Obviously, I'm through the most intense part of it. My body's already feeling good. It helped me for sure take it easier on my body as this vicious virus basically made its way through the New England area. I saw so many people in my practice, so many of my employees on my team, and really just a host of people out there just around Boston that have been sick and run down and all of that, a bunch of kids in my daughter's school. So it was actually good timing. It was a time for me to just say, you know what, I'm going to take this time, a little bit more rest, a little bit more sleep. Of course, that didn't happen all that much, though, when you have 2 sick girls waking up during the middle of the night and having to get up with them. But I guess that's part of the fun of parenthood. So we dealt with that, though, but we're all on the mend. We're all feeling good and excited so that they can get back to their swim lessons this weekend. So that'll be a lot of fun as well. The other thing we had was welcoming all of our new members for the Integrative Health Practitioner Program. Love doing that and getting them in because we begin level 2 for those people that have passed level 1 starting in February. That's going to be super exciting because we are going to be teaching and training the next generation of health practitioners to be able to help people with their functional medicine labs. So that's why each and every Friday review, we're going to be talking about labs. What do they mean? Our integrative health practitioners have the option of taking level 2, which is going through all of these subclinical labs, the organic acids test, the stool test, it's the food sensitivity test, the hair tissue mineral analysis, the thyroid adrenal hormone or adrenal hormone, the omega-3 test. So many great tests to learn about and enabling their friends, family, coworkers, and even setting up their own private practice to be able to better understand these labs, what they mean, and then, of course, what to do about it. So we're excited about that. We really are because we are quite booked up, but of course, always happy to work with people in our practice. But we want to be able to refer people to others all around the world. That is the goal. That's always been the goal of the Integrative Health Practitioner certification, and our members are so amazing. We just did a Q&A call, which we do every 4 to 6 weeks with our members, answering their questions live in our other private Facebook group. So excited about that. Really do love it. It's probably one of my greatest passions right now is that program. If you're interested in finding out more details, simply go to integrativehealthpractitioner.org and you can find out all the details. The next 6 weeks, this will be the last thing that I want to chat about. I will be traveling all over the place, all in the U.S., but I will be traveling through all of January, all of February, speaking at all sorts of different types of events and also doing interviews all around the United States. So one thing I like to do is each and every Friday talk about the last podcast that I was on. So I was just on my last show. It was called The Platform, and The Platform released actually last week, but I did not have all of the data at that time. So what we're going to do is link up that show today, and for that show, you can go to stevencabral.com/1071, and I will link up the great podcast, great host. So I did this show with Kelly Tennant is the name of the host for the show. Amazing individual doing so much great work for the health and fitness-based industry. I don't know if she was a professional athlete before, but certainly an athlete in her own right. She did reporting before, really diverse background, amazing podcast called The Platform. You can check that out. I will be linking up my show with Kelly at 1071. So that's where you'll find all the notes today, as well as this upcoming book review right now called Protein-Aholic. Now, Protein-Aholic, I didn't find it back in my recommendations on a Friday review, so I figured I would just give it to you again here today. And this is why. I know the carnivore-based diet is such a huge diet right now, or it's at least trending that way, that you're getting a lot of information from that perspective. Well, my viewpoint on life is this, is whenever we start to swing in one direction, let's read about what the other side is talking about, why the carnivore-based diet might not be that great an idea. And this is a pretty easy book, in my opinion, to get through. Nothing too crazy. It's about 300 pages. Then it gives you some recipes in the back. Now, a lot of books are swaying people in one direction, but it's because of what they found essentially in their practice. This is written by Garth Davis. He's a medical doctor. And basically the tagline is this, so you're going to know what it's all about. How our obsession with meat is killing us and what we can do about it. Now, of course, his viewpoint is meat is essentially bad, and it's causing all sorts of things from heart disease and cancer, high blood pressure, but even talking about obesity as well as diabetes. I've spoken about before how high protein can actually cause diabetic-based issues. Joel Furman has talked about it before. There's a bunch of people that have talked about it and how it affects cell membrane dynamics as well. It's very interesting to look at. Now, again, do you have to read this book and completely give up meat or give up protein? You do not. But what I don't want people to do is become so dogmatic in their thinking that they simply won't even read information on what the other side is trying to present. And I think, like most health topics we have out there, we can go back and say, what do they say in traditional Chinese medicine? What do they say in ancient Greek-based medicine? What do they say in Ayurvedic-based medicine? What do they say in ancient Tibetan-based medicine? What are they saying? And you'll find that some people need a little bit more protein than others. And he gets to that towards the end of the book. Now, I don't want to ruin it for people, but I don't think that I am. His recommendations are basically right in line with mine, which is that the average individual will need about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And again, this is not my research. This is research that's been very well documented out there. But some people will need more, and some people can get away with a little bit less. The truth is this, and the easiest way to do it is this, is that most people figure out what your ideal body weight is and then take that in half. If you weigh 160 pounds, well, if you're athletic and you're moving, you need about 80 grams per day. Most likely that's closer to 60 grams per day, 65 grams or so per day. And especially that would be more for males where the body fat percentage is going to be slightly lower based on human physiology. Not saying that women can't have lower body fat. Of course they can. But for most women, once we get towards the 13% mark, that can cause hormonal-based issues as well. So again, check out this book. It's called Protein-Aholic by Dr. Garth Davis. It's worth a read. It can get a little technical in certain places, but I don't think that's enough reason to shy away from it. Great book. And again, do you need to give up completely animal-based protein based on this book? You don't, but if you're like on where I am, it's that there's nothing wrong if you chose to do that, for sure. But also, you might decide to just do a little bit more fish, or you might decide to do just one serving of meat per day instead of 2 or 3. There are variations of this, and I think that most people in the world today would be a whole lot healthier with doing a lot less meat. But again, you never have to take my word for it, and you don't have to live by that. I just want to present to you some of the research out there. And nice little transition into some of the research right now that I love bringing you. So I love the in-depth research myself. I love really kind of getting into the science and, does this even matter? Because so much research out there, after I read it, I'm like, so what? So what? This research means almost nothing because it was done in a vacuum. It was done on such a small group of people, or it was done with so many of the variables in place that how do we even know that there's any correlation to this whatsoever with what the research studied? So what I look for, sure, I'll read that research. I get sent so much research all the time that, my day could be just reading research alone, but I still probably do, I would say, anywhere between, on average, 3 to 4 hours a week of reviewing research, reading research. It's something that I enjoy, so it's really not a big deal for me. I'm on different feeds for research that just get sent to me. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to check that out. And it all adds up to like a half hour or so, 40 minutes or so per day. And over the course of a week, what's that, about 3-4 hours or so? But, some of it I do like to pull out what I feel is just great information for you. So the second research I'm going to give you, the second piece in just a moment, is something to ponder. But the first one is done on a much larger study. I love research studies that are done over the course of years, and I love research studies that are done on 10,000 or more people, a really large populace that we're looking at. Well, this one was done by, and again, I look all over the world. I don't look for the U.S. alone on some of our skewed research that we do just to back up some type of point that we just want to seem right on. Well, this one was done in France, but it was still published in JAMA, the Journal of Internal Medicine here. So this study was led by Dr. Julia Baudry, a PhD, an epidemiologist at the French National Institute of, it's actually INSERM. All right, so this will make it easier for you since I don't have to use my 7 years of French previously. It's been a couple decades. So Dr. Julia Baudry, Baudry, led the study, epidemiologist, and it was done at INSERM. INSERM. That's the first time I've heard of that. And it's a published study. It followed almost 69,000 people with an average age of 44. And it studied them for 4.5 years. It found that those people that ate the most organic food had 25% fewer cancers overall. This is specifically important for those people with postmenopausal risk for breast cancer or non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And the hypothesis is of the study that pesticides actually damage the DNA in our cells, which lead to cancer. I thought that was interesting to bring to you because this was a large study, published study, 69,000 people for 4.5 years. That's a considerable amount of time. Those people who ate the most organic food had 25% overall cancer. I'll take that, right? I mean, without a doubt. Any way that I can lower cancer for myself, my family, those in my practice, I'm going to do it. One more reason why, right? Because pesticides can damage DNA. That's been proven. So let's check out another study. This one is more to ponder. It was a smaller study. I'll always tell you when it's a smaller study. Published in the Nutritional Neuroscience. Okay, so published in Nutritional Neuroscience, and the lead on this study was Dr. Lena Begdashi, and it's Begdache, Dr. Lena Begdashi. And it was done at Binghamton University in New York, okay? Published in the Nutritional Neuroscience. It's a hypothesis right now, but quite interesting, something that I see in my practice, is that women may have a higher nutrient need to promote overall well-being and emotional balance. And here's why. And again, this is the hypothesis of the study. Men tend to experience mental well-being until they become nutritionally deficient, meaning that men seem maybe a little bit more upbeat or just not as prone to anxiety or lower mood than women. But it says this is just quoting directly from the study, but women seem to require a consistently balanced diet to experience mental well-being. This may explain why women have a greater risk for mental distress than men do, a result found in previous studies. So these are obviously follow-up studies. Women are twice as likely as men to be diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and they suffer from longer episodes. So, as I'm reading through my research, I said, okay, this is interesting, but, there's not a lot of hard science behind this. But in my practice, again, we've seen over 250,000 people, and I can tell you for sure that women that I've seen in my practice are a little bit more prone, at least it seems that way, of having lower mood, a little bit more or higher levels of depression, a little bit higher levels of anxiety. Now, that's not to say at all that I don't see men in my practice. I mean, just today, I saw someone in my practice, male, higher levels of anxiety, right? 2 days ago, someone with achalasia in my practice, always, towards stress and anxiety. So I don't want to say that it's just women alone. I don't want to say that. But what we have, and I believe this is true, and it's why I believe that women don't do as well on a keto-based diet or a very low-carb diet, where they're missing a lot of their macronutrients, is that they tend towards, and this makes total sense, a survival-based perspective of lowering thyroid, which is going to absolutely affect mood, and lowering neurotransmitters such as serotonin with higher levels of stress, such as cortisol, when the body has gone without food or fasted for too long. It's simply what I look at in my practice, and I can say this, is that in my opinion, a lot of women that I work with as well, and I work with a lot of women with previous eating-based disorders, and they're worried about weight gain, and because of that, they're taking in less calories. This gets dangerous because if they're not eating a diet high in micronutrients rather than macronutrients, they're going to become deficient in a lot of their B vitamins. Those B vitamins, along with vitamin C and zinc, are used to produce and combat stress. So they're used to produce neurotransmitters, yes, but they're also used to combat stress. So again, this is a generalization, but when you are cutting calories, you're fasting for longer periods of time during the day, you have a lot of demands on your time, you're not trying to gain weight, it can work against you. And so what I'm trying to always recommend is focus on health first. Let's focus on getting our breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We can still do a 12-hour overnight fast. We can still do a longer fast once a week, or we can do our detoxes every 12 weeks, which is a longer fast. So these are all things, I simply want the best for all men, all women out there, and getting your micronutrients, your carbs, proteins, and fats at every meal, and eating your brightly colored fruits and vegetables. You are going to, as they say, do a body good. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was interesting as well. I certainly see these things play out in my practice. And now I would like to bring you our lab results review of the week. So today I want to focus on a number called hemoglobin A1c. It's often written on your lab, your blood work, as HgA1c. Sometimes it's written as A1c. It can be called a bunch of different things, called glycated hemoglobin or glycohemoglobin test. What does all this mean? Here's what it means. Your doctor is going to run it, or you can actually run this on the thyroid adrenal hormone lab, which is literally the best hormone lab test out there. You can get that at equilibriumnutrition.com, just under the labs, or you can get it with your local integrative health practitioner, level 2, or functional medicine doctor. Okay, so why would we run this? Well, we would run this to actually look at blood sugar dysregularities before you even get diabetes. Now, of course, if you have diabetes, we're absolutely running the hemoglobin A1c because we want that number to always be below 5.7%. So all you need to know is 5.7. So we look for that range between 4 and 5.7. That's what we're looking for the hemoglobin A1c. Now, what does it mean? Well, it means this. What are we really testing for? Well, hemoglobin is something that helps to carry oxygen inside of our red blood cells, right? Well, that hemoglobin can actually bind to glucose, right? So glucose attaches itself or binds to hemoglobin in our cells. And what we look for is how much glucose has been attached, right? That's what we're essentially looking for. That's the easiest way to think about this lab. And the nice thing about hemoglobin A1c, it's also to the detriment of it though as well, because there's always a plus and a minus, is that it takes basically a 90-day average of your glycated hemoglobin, like how much sugar is getting into that cell. So what we're looking for is, this is our trend towards prediabetes or diabetes. If your level is above a 5.7, but below a 6.4, you're trending towards prediabetes. This is very important to look at, because this can be caused from improper diet, even inside a Protein-Aholic, high meat diet. Not for everyone, but just for some people. Again, some people can eat 400 carbs a day, and they will never get diabetes, right? More of that ectomorphic body type or that Vata body type. Or an athlete who's burning it all up. But this is really, that's why it's bio-individualized. This is why you need to run those labs. This is what it's all about. It's going deeper inside of your body that you can't see. You don't always know if you're a 5.7 or a 6.0. But if you're a 6.0, you're trending towards type 2 diabetes. Well, we can fix that, right? If you're 6.5% or above, typically we would say you have diabetes currently. Now, can that be reversed? If it's type 2 diabetes, typically, right? Typically. Can we diagnose, cure, or treat disease? Unless you're a medical doctor, we can't. Of course, that's not our job. Our job is to look at the underlying factors of why. Processed carbs, too many carbs for certain individuals, too much meat for certain individuals, inflammatory-based process, weakened cell membranes, lower levels of iron can actually cause the higher levels, like thalassemia, right? So rare autoimmune-based issues, too little red blood cells. So there are many other factors like anemia that play into this. So that's why no one lab test trumps any other. And that's the thing too, is like, I just get worried when we try to take supplements or we try to take anything, a lab test in isolation. We want a lot of data. The more data we can have, the better. That's how we can help people the most. I'm a huge advocate of the big 5 lab tests. Yes, they're expensive, but they tell you everything that's going on inside of your body. And so it's absolutely worth it. Now, this is one you will want to test, though, to look at the levels of stress and how you're eating. And it's very important along with your cholesterol numbers, right? And along with your homocysteine, which we'll talk about in the future, and your CRP. It's also important that you test your A1C during pregnancy to make sure that there is no gestational-based diabetes. So typically we're testing that around 12 weeks or so when you do become pregnant to make sure that your blood glucose is within normal parameters. Some women more prone to it than others. Again, more of the endomorphic body type or kapha body type would be more prone to it, but that's not always the truth. I've seen mesomorphs and pitta body types as well as vata body types, believe it or not, get gestational diabetes as well. We can typically work on that with nutrition and other things as well, but again, that's up to you and your doctor. So again, there are variations with this. It's one lab to use, but it's absolutely something that I would include on all of your blood work. And then also if you decide to run the labs on your own, you can run a thyroid adrenal hormone, which you can just check out over at equilibriumnutrition.com. Really great test, and it will let you know if you're trending towards that type 2 diabetes, which is so important for overall health and anti-aging. Hopefully this has been helpful. I thank you so much for tuning in. As always, check back tomorrow for our weekend house calls. This is when we answer our community's questions each and every weekend. Hopefully you'll check that out. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have an amazing weekend, and please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could help. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or unbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.